Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show.
Now we have the privilege of being joined by Bosun Adeyeye, a political analyst and risk expert whose insight always brings, of course, clarity to complex issues. This morning we will be unraveling two interconnected stories shaping Nigeria's political future. First, we would look at the recent cabinet reshuffle by President Bola Tinubu, a bold move, of course, that saw stakeholders and key ministries, especially the Ministry of Finance. We would examine all of that, the historic precedent of cabinet reshuffle and the changes, especially when we discuss the 2011, I think Jonathan, the 2011 reshuffle that President Jonathan had at the time. Which brought, of course, policy clearance and fiscal priorities. We would also examine the explosive INEC chairman scandal, the leaked alleged Twitter message, allegedly which raised a serious question about his neutrality, echoing the past controversies like the 2019 elections. We would analyze the historic parallels, the risk of all of this it poses for the 2027 polls, and what citizens must watch out. In the next hour, we'll bring you data, global examples, and expert analysis. So stay with us as we discuss these very important political issues that are currently trending in Nigeria. Bosun, it's so good to have you join us once more.
Good morning, Joy.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Good morning, my brother.
Good morning and welcome. Joy has already given us an overview of our discourse this morning. Let us actually begin with the reshuffle of the cabinet of His Excellency the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Bola Tinubu, who had to sit back again to do some reshuffling of his cabinet. And of course, historically, it is something that actually happens in Nigeria, where sometimes you see people get a seat in office and the next moment they get to reshuffle, sometimes very close to elections that we're already seeing. So this actually happened sometime in 2011, and there were a whole lot of uproar, there were talks, and now we are looking at it again. So in this case, what are the signals and what do you think Tinubu is actually sending?
And before you answer, remember that the past administration was also very much criticized for not reshuffling so much.
So actually that's where I actually want to start from. Presidents are different. They come with their peculiar nature, and that determines the way they handle the administration. It determines the way they tinker with the components of the people that sit with them at the table. However, we must lay some constitutional background to this, because the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria reserves the right to fire and to employ. So somebody who has the power to employ at any time has the power to also say go. I was listening to a sister session this morning, and one of the analysts was saying, is it rebuttal we call it now, that came from the presidency yesterday, or clarifications, was not necessary. Trying to explain that both ministers were not actually sacked, that they tendered their resignation letters, and the government, by extension, the president, appreciated them for the years and the efforts they have made, contributing their own quota to the government of Nigeria. For me, that's not necessary. If there will be anything like that at all, it should have been put into the first message that came out from the presidency when that development took place, stating clearly that we've received resignation letters from these gentlemen, and the president has graciously accepted the resignation letters and thanked them for their years of service. That would have settled it. So the idea of coming
back was like
clarify and
crisis management.
Look like it's not necessary. So taking me back to my first point, that the president reserves the power to hire and fire any of his aides. And people must understand that minister in the Federal Republic of Nigeria is the aide of the president. We're talking somewhere before I entered the studio now, and we're making reference to somebody like Wike. Wike is a minister, but many people don't even see him as a minister. Some people are seeing him as an emperor. Some people are seeing him as a super minister who is behaving like a president. For those who know, recently in the recent weeks, you see him sitting down with his children on the table. I don't know whether you have taken note of that. He sits there with his children, and somebody said, after all, president also goes around with his son. And I said, no, they are not different. I mean, they are not the same. The president is the one that has the mandate of the people. So if he has a son that is actually not, nobody could say Sheyi is holding any political office. But possibly you see him around his father at some level. I've not seen where, possibly after, maybe during inauguration, maybe during the party of inauguration.
That's when you get to see.
But you can't see Sheyi sitting down on the table where the president is sitting down. You will see him maybe at the back or somewhere. But this one, you see Minister Wike sitting down at the table with his, I think it used to be one boy. Yeah. Later we saw the second boy. Now with a girl, they are now three.
No, but somebody had the argument. While we digress a bit, I would like us to also address that. Somebody said, if I have a company and I'm running a company and my children want to understudy me without necessarily holding an official there's no official portfolio for these for your children on that table, is that particularly wrong to say, you know what, you met me in my office and I have my children who are understudying the work that I do on that table as well?
That is not a subject of
conversation at the moment.
So I would not like us to
digress that much.
Too much time on it. However, the point must be made. There must be a line to be drawn between public servants and their families. Situations where there is no that line between public office occupants and the family members, it's a challenge. Let's go back to the question you asked. The cabinet reshuffle that happened, if you look at it, the Wale Edun and Taiwo Edele took shine of the exercise. Is the one that people talk about, the one that actually, and the fact is that for those who follow the trajectory of this government, particularly the president, you will understand that it was going somewhere from the day this guy submitted his report on tax reforms. The enormity of the work the guy did. I don't know how many of you who were able to follow the challenges the guy had that time. I remember. He went to the National Assembly, having meetings with the northern stakeholders who saw that exercise as against them. So many different enclaves of interest within the polity, and the guy, I think God gave him the temperament. No matter how harsh the question, he will take time to explain to demystify.
Very often I attended his parley with media.
If you are the person who employed him and you saw him doing that, and I was shocked last year when he came to television and said it's not paid salary. Since he has been a chairman of that committee, he left his work.
Yes.
Remember, he was the president of task this thing, and before that time he has spent like 20 years with this popular accounting and audit firm. So it's somebody that has cut and hedged for himself. He has carved a niche for himself in his area of practice as a tax authority. However, doing the kind of work that he did, government and by extension the president saw that he has a work for him. And who is in best position to actually oversee this enormous work that the guy has done, other than the person that has actually put this whole thing together? So when Doris was removed from that place to Ministry of National Planning and Budget Office, he was brought in, But some of us knew that
There was,
it is
yeah.
that's not his destination. It was just brought in. As a matter of fact, if you also were following, you will see that sometimes around last year there were these rumors that government, the president wanted to sack Wale Edun for different reasons. Not that he was not corrupt. It's not as if he's corrupt or he has stolen money, but there are certain vibes that the president wanted in that ministry that possibly he was not getting. At the time, it was rumored that he was sick. So later we saw him showing up in London, but I think there's a missing link that the president was concerned that he will need a fresh air. There is need to inject new blood.
With doggedness above everything.
And you look at this guy, he just clocked 50 years last year. So he's at his prime. So bringing him to fill that position,
right.
I think for me is one appointment that has been celebrated in almost everywhere. So when you look at the other guy, Dangiwa, or what's his name, the guy from the Ministry of Housing, I don't follow him. I don't know how much he has performed, but the president who appointed him knows why he has asked him to go. But coming to the Ministry of Finance, I think for me, somebody was saying this morning on television that the president has not appointed Minister of State. Now, we don't know whether Taiwo Edele will be minister and the only minister in finance now. Maybe there will be no Minister of State, possibly to ensure lack of distraction. You know, a lot of distraction comes when you have minister and Minister of State. You begin to divide functions and all that. But when you have just one person overseeing the ministry as important as finance, there is single command of authority, and possibly that could help a lot. Particularly as a vibrant young man.
But did you? How did you find that very damning suggestions and I mean, it's been all over the internet that Wale Edun's scene had been that he had called for the complete audit of the NNPC. I mean, talking about the ongoing reforms and deductions that were done illegal. It was claimed at the time. So when you see people, claim that it is because he's asking for forensic auditing of the NNPC that has cost him this fate, what would you say about that? Because I mean, remember, we are all here trying to ensure transparency and accountability in governance.
I can tell you, I participated in one or two things that exposed me indirectly to the person of Wale Edun. I can tell you that it's one Nigerian that you can't fault his transparency stand. However, even if those people, because that's just one of the narratives out there, another school of thought or narrative out there is the fact that some people said some things he was saying in recent times offended the powers that be. That one of them was the things he was also saying when he went to National Assembly, talking about the fact that out of the 40 trillion naira that was expected for last year, that only 10 trillion naira was actually generated as revenue. However, you remember that the president in August last year came out to say the government has met the revenue target for the year.
Exactly.
So that's like a way of saying that information from the president was not right. And he was presenting the figure as they were, because you can't tell me that the Minister of Finance does not know what the figures were. So some people believe that could be part of
the friction.
Why he was having issues. Then again, I also understand that government, or by extension the president, was also not very comfortable with his, if you look at him, if you watch him very well, one of those issues I have with him is the fact that I see him as somebody who is conservative. I don't know whether you get it. So his approach to issues are not very proactive. So as a minister of finance, you are like the chief treasurer of the country. You must be thinking about how government get funding, how government gets revenues. You must be thinking alongside your NRS, used to be FRS now, your custom, and even these are traditional places where government make money. You can think about new ways like the tech and other places where government can actually put their eyes, where they need to develop the ecosystem around those areas, so that government revenue can actually improve, so that we do less of borrowing and we can actually generate more money locally. Possibly his drive around that was not very,
and could it have been exacerbated by the World Bank deleted annual report on Nigeria? Because that's another thing that was around this same period dissected by analysts. You know, it showed how well the economy is doing and how poorly Nigerians are doing.
The issue about World Bank report, for me, it was misplaced, because what the report contained was actually discovered later that the World Bank just saw the surface lines of the components of that budget analysis. They didn't go into the nitty-gritty of how those monies they were thinking were lost or something. Were actually, because in Nigeria we have a unique way of running our budget. There's something we call first line charge. There are statutory transfers. So all these monies were not part of what will be shared among the federal government and the federating units, which are the state governments. So when you just look at the whole money that comes to that cover, and you don't find, when you do your what do you call it now, balance sheet, and at the end of the day you discover that that something trillion was actually lost, without you thinking about how much has gone out in statutory transfer. And I mentioned here last week that a number of revenue generating agencies like Custom, NNPC, they remove their money from source.
They do.
So that's one of the issues we have as a government. And I told you last week that that's why some of us celebrated when the president signed that executive order that now made NNPC to pay directly to the consolidated revenue account.
Exactly.
So it's no more business as usual. So if somebody is saying that the president booted out 1 year ago because he raised issues around transparency, that's not correct. A president that would not want transparency wouldn't have signed that kind of because what that does is that there's no hiding place for NNPC again. So every money they generate now goes to that account directly. So if they need money for whatever it is, for extra whatever spending or to cover their cost, they have to present their budget, and that budget has to be approved. So that's transparency on its own. While people are saying that the same thing government has done in NNPC, they should extend it to custom. They should extend it to NRS. So it's not a situation where because NRS will generate 30 trillion and 7% of that money will be are said to have taken care of their own internal costs. That could be very outrageous. But let's know how much every agency of government do budget, and the budget talks about what you will spend and what you are generating. Absolutely. So let's see what's your cost of generating this. In fact, people have said across the world we are one of the most expensive in terms of cost of generating our revenue. In some crimes, it is between 2 to 3% of what you bring in that serves as a cost of revenue mobilization. But in this part of the world, some are as high as 7%. So it's important that the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, should do more of that kind of executive order extended to other main revenue generating agencies like Custom and FRS. But for me, I think the cabinet like somebody said, the cabinet result we just saw is just it's good. And I don't link it at all with election. It has nothing to do with election.
Right. Well,
but this Monday,
we would.
What they do will clock 70. So that is determining on his own that I've done enough. He was Commissioner for Finance under Asiwaju for 8 years in Lagos. And if he had been brought back to serve as Nigerian Minister of Finance for 3 years, I don't think this is one person among several millions of Nigerians that are competent to occupy that position.
Absolutely.
So we should be grateful to the president and to Nigeria.
So it's time to go for a short break. I mean, you just mentioned elections, and it's time to get us to that conversation of how neutral our elections are going to be. Nigerians, some Nigerians are complaining and pointing back to the umpire, the chair of the umpire. We'll be right back after this short break. This is Razem Africa.
Welcome to Razeb Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show.
Welcome back from that. We're still having that conversation. We've taken it now to INEC, where there's an alleged conversation or a tweet at the time by the INEC chair, Amupiton, who at the time was excited about the winning of the APC. Now that conversation has gotten to a point where INEC themselves have conducted what they called an independent analysis of whether or not it was his. They came up with their report. Other independent data decoding platforms have also come out to say no, it is indeed his. They have gone through his IP address, his email address that was attached to that Twitter. However, I guess the question here to you would be from the I don't know. You had this conversation. I already know where your stand is. We had this conversation, I think, 2 weeks ago when you came, when it was still rife, when it was congratulating the ruling party, and which has sent shockwaves. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to die down. Now, historically, Nigeria's Electoral Commission, like in 2019, also faced alleged bias. What parallels would you say you see in this? And what do you see as the risk for 2027? I know your stand, but for people who at the moment believe that INEC is already biased way before elections, what are the risks in it?
Okay.
You could reiterate your stand again for those who are watching you for the first time too.
I don't have any problem with what is going on because we are in democracy. And in democracy, the beauty of democracy is to have variety of opinions. Like they will say, minority will have their say, majority will have their way. It's not, like somebody was saying recently, is there a correlation between ADC protesting and asking that the man we are talking about today should resign, and less than 48 hours, that issue of his comment, victory is sure, surfaced on X. Is there a correlation between the two instances? Whether there is or not, that's not my problem. Like I said last week, let's dissect this issue. Amupiton was a free citizen of Nigeria as at the time last election was conducted, without holding brief for him, and without, let me agree, without conceding to the people proposing or the proponent of the fact that he is the owner of that Twitter account, X account. So I'm saying that as at 2023, when this date quoted, if it is anything to go by, he was a free citizen of Nigeria. He was allowed by Nigerian Constitution to have an opinion. As a matter of fact, the requirement of being a chairman of INEC chairman does not say you must you must not have been a member of a political party. But what it requires is that as at the time you are appointed, you must not be seen to be a member of any political party.
Right.
So if a former member of a political party is qualified to be chairman of INEC, how much more somebody who just expressed an opinion about political process at that time, why should you say his head should be brought to the court because he made a comment? Pretty sure he wasn't just responding to a comment made by somebody who is a political personality, that Israel. However, the man has come out to say that account does not belong to me. Again, INEC as a body, because we must understand that he is a person, but now he works in INEC. INEC is an institution. So INEC has instituted, according to the report they gave to us, an independent body to look at the issue and come out with their report. Now the report, according to what I saw, has been pushed through law enforcement agencies like DSS and police to do further. I think that's the direction we should go on this issue. Now, independent inquirer have done their work. They've come up with their report. The report is now in the public space. So DSS, police can do their work.
How independent was it if it was?
I don't know. But when they say independent, you have to believe them. And as a journalist, we have freedom of information in Nigeria.
However,
you can approach them and say,
if INEC,
you need the details of this independent
right, but if INEC is the payer of this platform that is conducting the independent inquiry, it still boils down. It's a paradox. We are afraid of the neutrality of INEC, and Nigerians are afraid of the neutrality.
Nigeria and every entity in Nigeria is corrupt.
Not necessarily, but there are the tendencies.
So if you have professional ethic, you have, for me, like for example now, I am an insurance person.
Right.
I'm a professional. I'm not just one of those people that just go around doing the business. I am a professional at what I'm doing. I'm a risk expert. So are you saying that if I'm commissioned to do a work, I would throw my ethics to the wind?
No, I am saying that whoever commissions.
I'm not saying that cannot happen.
Right. I'm saying that if you are intentional,
but
if you're intentional about,
this is an issue of national importance.
Right. But
if your company is called to come and do a fact finding about the issue at stake, I don't think any right thinking company will want to just do any. However, I don't think we also need to toe that part. Already I just said it, that they've said this report is now public. Law enforcement agencies, take it up. We have DSS, we have police. Let them go into it and also do their independent finding.
Well, you just... you go ahead.
All right. So I'm concerned, and I seek to just take you a little bit into this issue of INEC.
Okay.
Because for me, I feel there are a little bit of what I tag a foul play when it has to do with who becomes the INEC chairman. And again, when issues like this come up, it will still take us down to, yes, of course.
The mode of appointment.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get back there. If INEC could now sit up today and say they want to do some fact finding and checks on if the chairman of INEC actually is the owner of the account
or not.
Why would they not have done checks on their highest in the body to probably present such person to the president to say this is who we want to become the chairman of INEC?
It doesn't work that way.
Okay.
With due respect, it doesn't work that way. The president is the chief executive.
Of course.
By the constitution of Nigeria, INEC is supposed to be an independent body. Just like judiciary is supposed to be an independent arm of government. But you also understand that you are even talking about INEC. The Chief Justice of Nigeria is going to be appointed by him. Because what this what do they call them now? NJC will just do is to nominate 3 people. So and he can take the number 3. So he has the power to leave number 1, number 2, and take the number 3. So the power of appointment still lies with the president.
Good.
So when you talk about why are we doing that part? Why can't we allow INEC personnel to come together and say this person among us should be the president? It doesn't lie within their capacity to do that. The president reserves the power to nominate anybody, whether within or outside. The president can rise up today and say any of the commissioner can be nominated for the position.
Now it takes us back to what Joe was trying to bring up, because this is where the discussion was actually tilting to. And what happens if the independent bodies that are actually doing this fact checking are now proudly in support of who is supposed to be the INEC chairman, and then giving facts to just make whatever came up not true,
not credible.
Yes.
So now the issue of credibility, in fact, the whole issue from the comments made on Twitter, on X,
it hinges on credibility.
On trust.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've spoken about law. Now we talk about perception and about morality. As far as I'm concerned, I still maintain the fact that that guy called Professor Amupito, as far as I'm concerned, if I'm permitted to express my own opinion as a Nigerian, which I'm entitled to, he has not done anything wrong.
Why then do you think he accepted to this social media fray? Because you mentioned it and broke it down really well. Mm-hmm. Frankly, he has not done anything that is legally wrong so far. And I'm sure he knows this. Why did he fall prey to the social media? It's almost as if he doesn't have the kind of resilience that our president has. Our president will not even give it a thought.
The rush with which they came out to make the first public statement on that leaves much to be desired. Mm-hmm. Because for me, it was not necessary.
Exactly.
This is not the first time people throw up things.
Exactly.
If you don't respond to it, people can say all manner of things. But you allow things to play out naturally.
Absolutely.
But situation where people say something on social media and you are quick to respond, they will dig more. Somebody was saying something, said, except particularly in this technological age, this ICT time, there is no way, if I'm to be appointed for a position tomorrow now, people will dig what I've said before about one thing or the other.
Yes.
So the fact remains that as a public officer in an environment like ours, where the social media space is not regulated, you need to have this
shock absorbers,
extra skin, where you can absorb all manner of things. Mm-hmm. Particularly, we are going to 2027 election. You will see a lot. Mm-hmm. You will see, in this one, they even show the sign Asiwaju's kind of cap and put on his head.
Yes, there's one like
that's what it represents. Mm-hmm. You will see going forward where they will show that Amupitan was having meeting with politicians.
Absolutely.
And they will show it will be very real. You will hear his voice speaking. Because the people who are doing this, they are targeting something.
Absolutely.
So, and we all know today that there is nothing anybody wants to do about you that you are not a political personality that you cannot achieve.
That's true.
Because we are in AI today, somebody can clone another Joy that will sound like Joy, that will appear like Joy, that will speak like Joy.
Should try that.
So then we should understand that yes, why this allegation could be true. At the same time, it's also not out of place that it could be the work of the people who don't really want that guy there.
Manipulate.
And the question I've been asking is that if you insist that the president should remove him because of this, for me, trivial issue, I say it's trivial. Who is going to appoint the next person that will occupy that position?
Okay, so that brings us to the question of the elections is fast approaching. 2027 February is just.
So even if you want to talk about changing the mode of appointment, that will not happen between now and next year.
Yes,
it will happen.
But let's talk about, even with the Professor Joash Amupita and then all the electoral things put in place, including the Electoral Act. how should Nigerians be very sure that in the course of these elections that we're actually entering, because 2027 is a big election for us, it determines what happens even in 2031. So, how should Nigerians take this one? Should Nigerians be too sure? Should Nigerians be confident that the electoral umpire will truly be independent, as the name implies?
Let me say to you, the chairman of INEC, as it's presently constituted, has no exclusive power to rig any election. Elections are rigged from polling units, from collation points. So if Nigerians, I've said this in other fora, if Nigerians are serious, particularly the youth who are preoccupied on social media, tweeting and blasting and abusing the mates of their fathers and grandfathers, and they can say anything, if they will concentrate and conserve that kind of energy and rechannel it to being responsible, being alive to their civic responsibility by not just voting but ensuring that their vote counts in 2027, there will be a departure from what we used to see. Because one of those things that Joe and I discussed last time was the fact that FCT election was about 15% turnout. Where are the youths in FCT? Where are Nigerians in FCT? Does it mean it doesn't concern them who is the chairman of AMAC and other places? So if this idea of particularly elites, people who are educated, sitting down with their television on the day of election, and some of them even playing balls along the street, and will never even get permanent voter card. You hear many times INEC will say several millions of INEC voter card are not yet collected.
Yeah.
People just go there to fulfill all righteousness, and several others that have even collected, they will not bother to come out to vote. So for us, because I can tell you, people that will be INEC officials are not going to come from Niger. They are not going to come from South Africa. They are from among us. So INEC chairman is not the one that will rig election in 2027. Elections will be rigged by polling agents, from polling units to collation points, ward collation points, to local government collation points, to state collation points, before it reaches, is what they put from those places that INEC will announce in Abuja. So this fixation of mindset on the INEC chairman doesn't make sense to me.
We're looking at INEC generally. We're looking at...
No! INEC is not... You are talking about INEC generally, and I'm breaking it down for you, the way it works. So if Nigerians can hold that polling agent, that polling, the INEC officer at that polling unit, they are always three. They have R1, R2, R3. So if the three of them are what? The third one is the one that oversees that polling unit. Is the one that will announce the result of that polling unit. If Nigerians can hold them to account and say, we know what we thumb printed, and you will count it in our presence. So if we know that, okay, in polling unit 110, ADC is the one that wins there, and one of the party agents will follow that result to local government, to what collation point, to local government. So at what point will they change it? So I'm saying parties and Nigerians should be alive to their responsibilities. As we speak today, many parties don't even have representative at the polling units, and the law provides that you must have party agents in every polling unit.
Yes.
So where you don't have party agents, or your party agent connive with other party because they give him money and allow them to change figure, why will you blame Mahmoud Peter for that? So I'm saying, if you must see a transparent election, a credible election, an election that every Nigerian will be proud of next year, Nigerians must be awake. We must be awakened to our responsibility. We must be alive to our responsibility. We must all come out to vote and ensure that our votes count. And I'm saying to you, the solution to credibility of Nigerian election next year is not the removal of Amupiton. So it's a waste of time saying he should resign. And I'm telling you, I can say it to you without speaking for President Bola Tinubu, that we will not remove him. So you are just wasting your time asking for removal of Amukutan.
Anyway, so having heard all that was said and how it was phrased, we don't no longer have a lot of time. So quickly, what do you envisage 2027 would look like with social media manipulation, tech manipulations, and all that? The polity is
so I have problem with the person of Amukutan. And after this, you can go and listen to an interview granted with Ruben Abati. Sometimes like 1 or 2 weeks, 2 weeks ago. I think before this whole scenario, the interview happened that time. And he was beating his chest because Ruben Abati asked him about the technical glitch that happened in 2023. That we will not see something like that in 2027. And he was saying with confidence that nothing of such will happen. Then I was also asking him that how are you so sure that because we are in the times of AI and all that was not happening around that time. But now it's like the ecosystem around the election is even more volatile now. And he was still saying with assurance, like 100%, that he's sure that they have all it takes. For me, I was having, in my practice, because we also have some marketing tool.
We really have run out of time, so
they say under promise and over deliver.
Right.
When you over promise, people will hold you to what you have said.
And that's what happened in the past administration. Right. And that's what happened in the past administration.
So I wish INEC well, because it is in. I also need to tell Nigerians that we should need to believe in our system, and the people who occupy the position in our system should also ensure that people can always trust them, because they are in position of authorities on behalf of the people. Public office is public trust.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your insight into this. But this is where we end today's edition of RAZEB Africa. Unyime Anyete, thank you so much.
Thank you, Joy.
Until next time when we come your way, do have yourself a wonderful rest of the day.